Welcome back to the McCoy Leadership Podcast, elevating your impact through valuable insights and conversations about leadership. Welcome back to another episode of the McCoy Leadership Podcast. And today we have Kirk McCarley with us. Kirk has spent more than 30 years in executive leadership, both in public and private companies. He's the Seed Sower Coach, and he has a solid reputation for fostering individual growth and development beyond the client's expectation. Kirk, welcome, and thank you for taking time out of your day to spend with us. Tell us a little bit about how did you get to where you are today?
Well, Amos, first of all, thank you for having me, and a welcome to our listeners and viewers as well. I live in Northwest Florida. I'm a person of faith. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm a grandfather. I am a former HR executive. I am now a career development, executive development, interviewing and life coach. I am part of the gig economy, so I have some other interests as well. I have had a relationship with a little company out of Bristol, Connecticut called ESPN for almost 30 years now. I teach group exercise classes, and last year I became an author as well. So how did I get here? Native Texan, and spent the first 2/3 of my life in Texas. My wife is from there as well. We met in college. We have a couple of kids. Job opportunity in HR presented itself to me when I was 44 years old. That took us to the Midwest, to St. Louis. That's where I finished that career. And late in that career, being an HR practitioner, the stereotype is we work with benefits and employee relations and recruiting, compensation, areas such as that. But I noticed increasingly employees were not coming to me to ask questions about that, but rather it was, Kirk, I'm stuck right now. I want to advance in my career. My life-work balance is not what I wish it was. How can you help me? Which later in the career, I got to the point I was ready to try something else. So when I was 56 years old, I hired a coach myself. And it was about the third meeting with him that I confirmed that I want to do what you do. I want to go into coaching. And so that's when that career launched. That was nearly 12 years ago. We fell in love with Northwest Florida, visiting down here and investing in this area. So when I separated from my work in St. Louis, my wife and I moved here, and we've been here for 8 years now. Absolutely love it. What's not to love about being half a mile away from the Gulf of Mexico?
So, half a mile away from the beautiful Gulf of Mexico, an area to relax, fish, and do all those things. I'm just curious. Now, you talked a little bit about people come to you, work-life balance, and you're at a point in your life now. Do you get to go spend some time over there?
We made a New Year's resolution this year that we need to stroll down to the beach more often than we have been doing. She's got her own business as well. She's an interior designer, and we get so captivated and caught up in the many activities that we have going on, we forget that paradise is just a short distance away, and it doesn't cost us anything to get there and hop on a plane. So in answer to your question, Amos, we get there, but we don't get there as much as we would like and as we should.
I had to ask the question because I kind of thought I knew the answer, because I feel that we all do the same things. We make these decisions, or, whether it, I have known people that bought boats, or they bought a cabin, or they bought a camper, or whatever. And I always ask the question, do you use it as much as you would like to? And the answer is always no. And you mentioned as well, you're a man of faith. And I believe, and I am as well, and I believe that that's one of the things that we as Christian business leaders do terribly at, is that, there should be opportunity for us to have rest and relaxation and that time. And so often, just recently, my wife and I were talking, and actually it was this morning, and we're halfway through summer. My daughter is 11. She's getting ready to go into 6th grade, and we're halfway through summer. And for me, summer vacation doesn't mean anything. I mean, my work day doesn't change, right? But for my wife, which is a school teacher, and my daughter, which is in school, summer vacation's a big deal for them. And here we are halfway through summer, and I got kind of we haven't done anything yet. And it's so easy to forget about those things. So anyhow, I'm sure we might come back to that thread as well. So you spent a lot of time in HR. The cliche that everybody kind of thinks that your benefits and those pieces. How much of today's HR professional is spent solving, I don't want to say personal problems, but problems around the workplace that are a result of people not having the work-life balance or not having the forward motion they think they want? And how do you think that has changed from 30 years ago?
30 years ago, when I got into HR, there was a lot of emphasis on the family structure that existed in an organization. You had athletic teams, bowling teams, softball teams. Let's get together after work. Let's go to the tavern, so to speak, have a beer, debrief before we go home at the end of the day. Those kinds of things that are more associated with the 40 years with one company and retire and get the gold watch seem to have gone by the wayside. And in fact, one of the concerns at work is there's not connectivity anymore. I don't know the people who I work with, and there's just not time in that life-work balance spectrum to incorporate all that. And I saw that evolve more and more as I was in HR. And there were often concerns about, you're really not doing anything for the employees to get to know each other, get together. But when we would try to assemble those events, people weren't able to come. I'm too busy. So it died out, so to speak, for lack of a second. And so now work becomes functional. There's a lot of demand. As a leader, we have a tremendous amount of responsibility to set that tone. It reminds me of a friend that I know, close friend, and she took it upon herself to work the 60, 70, 80 hours a week so that she could allow her younger staff members opportunity to spend time with their families. Well, guess what happened? We mimic what we see in the boss. They were working the 60, 70, 80 hours a week, thinking that was what was expected of them. So sometimes unintentional consequences and outcomes come when we try to do something that we feel is in the best interest of the workplace. So that's a long-winded answer to your question. What changes have I seen? That's an example and observations of what has occurred during my career in leadership.
So what do you think has caused the shift? Is it just more information and more things available to us? Or is it technology? What has caused that shift that people can work somewhere for 10 years and still not know anybody they work with?
Technology has certainly been a contributing factor to that. Remote work enters into that as well. We're here talking remotely. We're making a connection, but that you can never replace, in my mind, that personal interaction, seeing a person right in front of you, seeing more than their profile from their chest up. Those have been contributing factors as well. I think what I alluded to earlier of mimicking what we see in leadership, where an expectation is set. We'll pick on Elon Musk for a moment, who sets a standard at his companies that we're going to work 80, 90, 100 hours in a work week. That becomes the expectation, to the detriment of not only connection with the people you work with, but worse, connection with your family members, because you're never home, and that creates a even bigger gap with that life-work balance idea.
So what are some of the things that you've come up with that can help us a little bit? And I guess, where we're really headed is into your Seed Sower Coach, you being the Seed Sower Coach. And I guess before we even get there, I got to ask, what's the story behind the name?
There's a couple of things. It came pretty easily when I was thinking about a name for the business. One, I'm an avid gardener. And so I love to put the beans in the ground, put the seeds in the ground, and see what transpires. So I've still got a garden here in Northwest Florida, and I've been doing that for years and years and years. So that's a part of it. And it parallels the parable of the seed sower from the Gospel of Luke, where seeds are planted, we nourish them, we water them, we take care of them, much like I hope to do with clients, in order that this small little seed can become something even more significant than was ever thought possible. So those are the two motivations behind that.
I like it. Although I do have to share, we have a garden here in Pennsylvania, and my wife just recently said, she's like, I hate July because the bugs come and this happens, and we got weeds and we got this, and because anybody that gardens knows that there's a little bit more than just putting it in the ground and putting water on it, right? And I always remind her every July we have this conversation, and I say, well, just thank Adam and Eve. And the first time I said that, she's like, what are you talking about? And I said, in Genesis, God said that we would now have to grow things by the sweat of our brow, and it was not going to be easy. I'm paraphrasing, but anyhow, there's just my little comical take on that.
Well, and I think South Central Pennsylvania, where you're located, maybe you have a little bit of rolling terrain and some rocky soil.
Yes.
Here we don't have the rocks. We've got sand. And how are you going to make nutrition out of this beautiful sand that is lovely through the beach, but not so good for growing crops in?
Yep, I would agree. So back to your work as a coach, what are some of the things that you're working on today when you're working with individuals that maybe start to attack some of these things that we've talked about, work-life balance, expectations being higher than they ever have been? What are some of your points?
Well, with a client, I start from the standpoint of building relationship. And you and I were talking about this offline before we went live, about the need to listen and listen intentionally, and borrowing from one of the 7 habits from Stephen Covey. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. So first of all, regardless of where a client is, what they're asking for my assistance with, I want to seek to build relationship. And that tendency we have to want to butt in and cut them off or not give a person time to process has caused me to be more deliberate in my approach. I read this, and it's really resonated with me, that here in the States, we have about a 1-second pause between someone saying something and our responding to it. You go to the Northeast, where they talk a little bit faster, 10 to, compared to what we do here in the South. That's maybe 1/2 second. You go to some European countries, we'll pick on the Italians a little bit, it's like minus 1/2 second. They talk over each other. And it's, again, the stereotype of the big Italian family meal where everybody is talking at once. You go to Asian cultures, it can be 5, 6, 8 seconds before somebody talks. And that becomes a custom. And the idea behind that is to allow people time to process, to be deliberate in that regard, to listen well, and to make sure that the person's understood. So I've tried to adapt that into my connection with clients. First of all, and getting back to your question, to create an oasis, so to speak, trust. You can share what you want to share here, and you're going to be listened to. But also, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions because I'm looking to gain knowledge as well, so I can help you, because I believe that you've got the answers, but you've not had somebody who's treated the relationship from the standpoint of an intentional, sacred relationship to allow you the opportunity to really say what you're thinking, to process, and to maybe dig out that idea that is buried away that becomes your breakthrough or your aha moment, that now we've got something we can move forward with. What are you going to do with it? Let's work on that plan.
I love the fact that you brought up, and I think it's just important to bring out for the listeners that when you're in a coaching relationship, and whether that's a coach, a mentor, which are two different things, you have the answers inside of you. It's just that you need to have the right context to get them out. But 9 chances out of 10, you already have the answers inside of you. You encourage your clients, and something I had read in one of your pieces. I mean, you encourage your clients to consider the possibilities and then act on one of them or multiple of them, if it would make sense. I think the things that I have experienced in my life, even personally as well as with clients, the biggest thing is to overcome the fear and self-doubt in pursuing whatever that is. I just had a conversation with someone yesterday, and I know for a fact that they listen to the podcast, so maybe they might hear this and say, hey, but we were talking about, we were just meeting and having a cup of coffee, and we were talking about financial goals. And it kind of came up that, one of my past guests said, whatever the number is, pick $1 million or pick 5 million or whatever the case is. And they said, well, I can't go with something that big. It's not $1 million. I said, why not? Right? Why can't we go after that? It's fear and self-doubt, right? What do you do? What strategies do you have that will help somebody get past that fear and self-doubt?
Especially among younger clients, I hear this 2-word phrase of imposter syndrome, limiting beliefs. I don't believe that's possible. I'm putting restrictions, putting boundaries around myself, sometimes, all the time, self-created and with no basis really, other than I just don't believe that I can do that. So what are the steps we can take to overcome that? I'll ask people about dreams and ambitions, sometimes going way back. What is your suppressed desire that you've always wanted to do, and how are you utilizing that in the work that you're doing now? That will prompt a pretty lengthy discussion, oftentimes, I always dreamt about being in healthcare, or I dreamt about being a sports writer. But the one that I'll hear over and over again is, I always dreamt of being impactful. And here I am, stuck in a little cubby. I'm working remote. I'm doing obscure type work. How am I having impact? So we begin talking about strategies. What is unique about you? What is a differentiating factor that you have compared to others? We get into conversation about brand development. What are you known for? What are you famous for? What is your unique gift that you've maybe shared, maybe you haven't? How can that be associated with what it is that you're doing? And what that tends to do as we broaden that perspective is it prompts ideas. Well, I could try this. And I'll say, and then what happens after that? They begin to build upon that. It becomes a strategy. And I slip from being a coach to being an accountability partner at that point in time. Okay, you've come up with this idea. When are you going to act upon that? And we get very specific. I'm going to act upon it soon. All right, how soon? Next Tuesday? Next Friday? What time is that going to take place? How are you going to go about doing it? So we then get a concrete plan. And we may have not solved all of those limitations that a person believes they have, but we've solved one. They have some success with that. Let's tackle the next one.
So I find it interesting through a product that I use for sales training, and I'm only mentioning it so I can be fair of where it came from, which is integrity selling. We have a congruence model. And what I have found is this overlays in anything that we do. And the idea behind that congruence model is that you have your belief in yourself, whatever your job is and whatever you do, your view of your abilities, your values, your commitment to activity, and then your belief in whatever that end product is, whether that's a service or a product or anything that you're working on that can be your end result. And anytime any one of those things is out of line, so what happens is your commitment to activities goes down. So I often ask people whenever something is like, man, I've always wanted to do this. Okay, why haven't you? Well, they start to come up with some different reasons, but it all, to your point, I think comes back to what those limiting beliefs, I'm just kind of splitting them up into either your values aren't lined up, your personal values with where you're working or whatever that job is. Your belief in yourself isn't there. And anytime any one of those things gets out of focus, your commitment to activities goes down just naturally. So I kind of find that so interesting that that's really their limiting beliefs or in your theory, it is kind of lined up with that same idea that those things are all connected, but anytime one of those disappears, your commitment to activities goes down the hill.
Yeah, and that word used, values, it is so interesting that very few of my clients have prepared a list of what their values are. So what is your compass? What keeps you grounded in the workplace? What do you have as a measuring standard when somebody asks you to perform a task that you're going to determine, is this in alignment with what I believe, what's true to myself, what would be fair to others? And so that's when you got to get in trouble from an integrity standpoint. I'm doing something that is going to get me caught. It's maybe going to cost me my job or even much more because I don't have values to measure that task versus.
How many, so one of the things that I often work with people on is creating a mission statement, values, and vision, because I truly believe that you can't operate without one and operate well. But I also, it just hit me as you were saying that the other piece of that is we all have moments where we feel bad, we're depressed, or whatever wording you want to use there, but you have a bad day, right? And so many times for me, when I go back to my mission statement, it actually excites me because I realize now I've had one for many years and it's internally in me. And so when I'm having a bad day, I kind of go back and look at it. I'm like, oh, well, I'm doing all the things that are important to me, and sometimes that creates heartache. Maybe one of my things is to give. Well, maybe I give too much one week and now I have heartache and now I'm like, oh man, this is terrible. But then I go back and look and I'm like, well, that's what I wanted to do. Why do I feel bad? So having that centering point is so important to me. And I not only does it help to keep me focused, it also on a bad day makes me realize like, oh, I'm doing this stuff. Like it's part of it, because just like in business, I often tell business leaders, if you want to make something better, the first thing to do is start tracking it. As soon as you start tracking it, it will miraculously start getting better because everybody realizes, oh, they're tracking it. So it's the same thing with yourself. Start tracking your performance against your mission.
And that vision and mission transcends not only out of the workplace, but it goes into personal life as well. Do husbands and wives and family members, what is their mission? What do they value? What do they seek to accomplish as a unit? And so oftentimes with clients, I'll start there. You want this life-work balance? Let's focus on life first of all. What are you and your family unit attempting to do through the actions that you take? List your values, go home, write me a mission statement. We'll examine that when we get together the next time.
Well, but that can't work. I mean, because, I'm the provider. I have to do whatever it takes. I can't pay attention to those values and those things. I mean, we can't have a mission statement for the family because, I have to do these things and that's more important because me working 80 hours a week provides for my family. So they just have to accept that.
Well, and then we get to the definition of providing. If you're working 80 hours a week, are you really providing for your family? Are you taking time to have a sit-down dinner every now and then? Are you going to kids' ball games? Are you maybe helping coach the kids? Are you and your wife going out on dates? Are you taking vacation where you put the work totally away and focus solely on that? That's providing. Because if you're not providing now with the 80 hours a week, you may lose that opportunity to provide as you're now hoping to provide down the road because some other things are going to be out of balance.
So I think that is a key point. I like that. So your definition of providing for your family is not just bringing home a paycheck so that they can have an automatic can opener and a computer. Is that what you're saying?
It aligns somewhat, and this is in my book, about my definition of success and how we view that in society. And we've viewed it this way for a long, long time. It's not a recent phenomenon. Oh, they do well. Look at all the things that they have. They have a great house. They have cars. The kids are going to private school, et cetera, et cetera. But when you go behind those fences, is that really a successful life? Growing up, this little old lady lived behind me in Fort Worth, Texas, Mrs. Clark. And Mrs. Clark would hand trim her yard. Her husband was deceased, but hand trim her yard in the Texas heat in the summertime. And she would invite me in when I was younger, and we'd sit and hear Paul Harvey News in the background on the radio because she didn't have a TV, and we'd eat a can of Vienna sausages. But through that, she would share stories about what the neighborhood was like back in the 1930s, how it developed, people she has seen come and go. She would walk to church 6 blocks one way every Sunday because she didn't have transportation. Do the same thing going to the grocery store. She had a contented life, and she died at the age of 89 while she was trimming the grass in her yard. But she's one of the first people I think of when I think of success, because she had this joy that she personified, this contentedness, and wasn't wealthy by any means, but just lived a seemingly virtuous life.
A local mentor of mine just recently told me something that kind of stuck with me. He has outlived 3 wives. And what he said to me was, now looking back, he said, I never have once missed the car that I bought my wife, or the necklace that I got her, or, the nice clothes that I bought her. What I miss today is the time together to have a conversation or to sit on the porch in the morning and have a cup of coffee. And it really stuck with me. And I think that is just such an important piece, is that when we are looking back at the end of life, we're probably never going to miss, the fancy camera for the podcast but what I will miss is the opportunity to talk to people, whether it be family or even the connection and conversation that we're having right now. So I just reiterate your point of providing for the family is not only giving them money from your job, but your time, your wisdom, and your enjoyment, and that is providing for a family.
And that goes into leadership, because we bring that into the work environment with us. We set an example that others are going to want to hopefully aspire to. I want to mimic my leader. I want to live the kind of life that they are living. And it's not all riches, because he doesn't drive the fanciest car, she doesn't have the best of clothes, but there's a certain joy that's around them that I want a piece of that. Where does that come from?
So what advice would you give to someone today that feels stuck in their career or their life path? What is maybe a practical thing that they could do today that will help them to get started on a better path?
It's a great question, Amos, and I hear that as often as I hear about imposter syndrome in limiting beliefs. But it's a one-word response, and it's kind of become my word this year: move. M-O-V-E, move. And for some people, that's hard. It's hard for some, believe it or not, to just get out of bed in the morning. But once you're out of bed, make that bed. And then brushing the teeth will be a little bit easier, and splashing water on the face after that, and feeding the dog. And now I can go and check on email, because what you're doing, you're starting to generate momentum. And when there's movement, stagnation is very difficult, a very difficult quality or component to seep into things. And I get some of my best ideas when I'm out cycling. A lot of the book was written out on a bike, where an idea would pop to mind because the endorphins were kicked in, and I got to stop. I jot it down, put it down on the phone. I knew what the idea was. I could go write it down when I got back. The perspective changes when you're moving. You're not stuck in one place. You've got motion that's taking place. I taught spin class today. We have great camaraderie with some of the participants that are in there. I get incredible ideas from them. One fellow that's in the class, he said, "Are you going to put us through an arduous ride today?" Arduous became my word that day, picking it up from him. So just those connections again, and the inspiration that can come from that, pretty soon our view of things changes. We get unstuck.
I like it. There's my daughter once asked me, I have a rule personally, and to my knowledge, I think I've followed this my entire life, even as a child. Maybe not when I was, an infant, But my rule is I get up every morning and get dressed. And my daughter asked me at one point, I had a day, I was sick, under the weather, and she said, why did you get up and get dressed? I said, because that's the first step in every day, is to get up and get dressed. I'm not staying in my my pajamas for the entire day. I can't do it. I get up, I get dressed, and typically, even if you feel terrible, that getting going for me is enough to get me to the next step, and then, the day becomes somewhat productive. So what about those that are listening and thinking, well, I get it. It makes sense, but I'm at the end of my career. I only have 5 years left. It's too late. What are your thoughts?
I'm 68. I don't have designs on retirement. In fact, I'm more engaged than I've ever been and enjoying it more. Paul McCartney's 83. He's still outperforming, as is Ringo Starr. Paul, in fact, is collaborating on new music. John Glenn did his last space expedition at 77. Edward Deming, kind of the father of what we known as total quality management, which kind of morphed into Six Sigma and Lean and some of these disciplines that we practice now. He didn't get notoriety in the States until he was 70. The Japanese loved him, but Bill Moyers wrote an NBC white paper. We learned about total quality management. If Japan can do it, why can't we? So the point, Warren Buffett's 94 now. He's the financial guru here still. So the point of it is, age is just, it's a number. Keep yourself moving. You're going to keep yourself happy and go for as long as you can, because life is a marathon. We just don't know what mile marker we're at right now, but there's more ahead. And for those who are older, your wisdom is so valuable. People are, again, hungering for that. What have you experienced that I can take away? How can I learn from you? So it will keep you younger, and it will certainly have that word impact that we all crave.
John Maxwell recently said, don't confuse death with retirement. and so that has kind of stuck with me. Why quit? There's no finish line, not until you're dead. And then when you're dead, you can be dead. So I like that. So before we get to our last section, which is our rapid fire questions, how do people get in touch with you? If folks are interested, where can they find your book? Where can they reach out to you?
Book is out on Amazon. It's called Thoughts for My Kids and Other People's Kids. There it is. That's my granddaughter out in the distorted picture of the Gulf of Mexico. So, again, I'm in Northwest Florida. Santa Rosa Beach is the community we live in. It's about midway between Destin and Panama City Beach, Florida. My website is theseedsowercoach.com. I've also got KirkMcCarleyAuthor.com as a website, a landing page for that book. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. And would love to hear from any of you visitors, and just call me. We'll talk.
Awesome. And we'll be sure to have all of that in the show notes as well. So we end every session with a few rapid fire questions, just about 4 of them. I did add one recently, and then the other 3 have been in existence since the beginning of the podcast. But the first question, which is the newer one, what is the best single piece of advice you've ever received in your life?
I was at a time when our son, he's grown now, he's 34, but about 20 years ago, he was really struggling with adolescence, as were my wife and I, with how to parent that. And I was walking down the streets of San Francisco after having done a football bowl game. And our color analyst, Bill Curry, I'd shared with him about our son. He knows our son. And the piece of advice he had for me is, I've got good news and I've got bad news for you. The bad news is I don't know when it's going to happen. But the good news is your kids will eventually align with the way they were raised. And that's been proven right on both scores. It took a number of years, but our son is basically attempting to live out his life in the manner in which he was raised. So that was comforting advice. It was advice to be patient.
I like it. Second question, if we could magically get all of the school administrators from across the world into one room, and you had just a moment to give them one piece of advice of something that they could add to a student's career or their curriculum that would help turn out better, well-rounded, suited for society and leadership students, what would be that one thing?
I think a lot of these administrators are doing it already, but it's what the world needs now. It's love. To let those students know that they are loved and cared about for you, and that you're their advocate, and that you honestly want to see them have successful lives, because that's what gives you impact, to know that you have affected someone's life in a very positive way.
I like it. Third question, what has been your go-to book throughout your career that you still go back and revisit?
It's not intended to be a leadership book, but it ended being that for me. It's My American Journey by Colin Powell. He describes his time in the military and on into the time that he eventually retires. But what I like about it, he assesses people that he served under, secretaries of defense, generals, and he would evaluate them according to how they motivated the teams that were below them. It's a wonderful book, highly recommended read for anybody who is interested in the life of General Powell, one, but secondly, practical advice on leadership.
Awesome. Last question. Today's ever-changing world of technology, all the software and the gadgets and the things that are out there. What is your favorite piece of technology today that you find useful?
I live my life on Zoom, and with the pandemic, that really made it evident to me. Very few of my clients are in the area to where I can see them face to face. So a lot of this is done remotely. We're communicating virtually today, you and I, Amos. But for me, that's become my go-to. And now I just need to get my wife converted to that. I keep telling her, this is a great technology for you as an interior designer. She's still on FaceTime. So we're going to get her over.
Awesome. Well, Kirk, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend with us. I've had a lot of fun. I hope maybe we can get you back on again in the future. But thank you so much for taking time out of your day.
Thank you, Amos. A pleasure and a blessing for me to be with you and your audience today.
Awesome. And for our listeners, if you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to check out our past episodes. And don't forget to like us or give us 5 stars on whatever platform you're listening. That way you'll get alerts whenever the new episodes come out. And it helps other people find us as well. Until next time, we appreciate all of you.